It's always been the Wild Wild West versus the subpar East. But what if the NBA did away with the Eastern and Western Conference playoffs and just grabbed the 16 best to crown a champion? Of course, don't forget to drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Where do I go right? Where do I go wrong? And of course, let's have some fun. Let me lay the groundwork for heading into this tournament. Now, what I did, I went off win percentage, right? So if you have a team ranked higher than another team, it's simply based on win percentage at this point in time. I grabbed the 16 best with an asterisk, and we'll talk about that, and put them into this tournament, ranked them by their winning percentage. The asterisk is at the 16th seed. Right now, currently, technically, statistically, it is the Dallas Mavericks, but I said with all their injuries, I'm going to give the edge to the Atlanta Hawks, which were only a tenth of a point behind. So the Atlanta Hawks, they have that superstar level player, Trae Young. It's going to make things a little bit more interesting here in in today's video. Now, the last thing that I want to say, in honor of March Madness right around the corner, these are going to be one-game settings. Every team that is the higher seed will have home court in these games until the championship round. So let's just keep that in mind. But let's get into it. Let's not waste any more time. We'll run through these games relatively quickly. The 116 matchup here with the Cavs and the Atlanta Hawks. In real life, I am scared because I'm a Cavs fan and I don't want to face Atlanta in the first round because I think Trae Young's going to push it to a 6-game series. But I think in this one-game scenario, we're at home. I just think the big advantage is way too much for the Cavaliers. I think Mitchell and Garland can pretty much even out the production of a guy like Trae Young. I'm going to go with the Cavaliers in that one. Now, the 8-9 matchup, it's an age-old rivalry between LeBron James and Steph Curry. The two greatest of a generation, two first-ballot Hall of Famers, and arguably two top 10 players of all time. Now, there's a bit of wild cards here because the last time these teams faced, there wasn't a Luka Doncic, hello, and there wasn't a Jimmy Butler, hello, on the other side. This game's going to be fun because a one-game scenario, you could see Steph Curry going for 40, Jimmy Butler turning back the clock, being Miami Heat Jimmy Butler in the playoffs, and just willing the Warriors on top in this one. This is an 8-9 matchup for a reason. It can go a variety of different ways, but this is the reason I'm going to go with the LA Lakers. In this tournament, I'm going to basically assume that everybody's at full health, unless somebody has a season-ending injury. So, for example, the Lakers, Rui will be back. Jackson Hayes will be back. LeBron James will be back. So, they don't have season-ending injuries. So, with that argument, that's why the Mavericks missed the cut, and that's why I have the Lakers moving on here to face the Cleveland Cavaliers. A bit of a storyline there. Now at the 413, this is the media matchup. Big market New York, big market LA. Who's going to come on top because they have the superstar players as well. On one side, Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. On the other, Kawhi and James Harden, two future Hall of Famers. Now in this matchup, they played just recently, and the LA Clippers came out on top. However, there's an asterisk because no Jalen Brunson. I'm assuming Jalen Brunson's going to be back for this matchup here in this world, and he's going to be fully healthy. So with the fact that they're home, and with the fact that Jalen Brunson is going to be back, I'm going to give the edge to the New York Knicks here. But I will say, players always, role players specifically, always have their best nights against the New York Knicks, especially in the Garden. So could this be a Norman Powell explosion? Could this be a Nick Batum magical playoff performance like he did last year? It's possible, but I'm going to roll with the home team in the New York Knicks in a one-game setting. And on the 5-12, this is a very popular, I can assume from you guys watching, upset spot where in a one-game setting, the Indiana Pacers, and I'll say this, in a one-game setting, the Pacers can beat anybody because if that offense is clicking and with their pace, they can beat anybody because they can just score 145 points. But for the Pacers in this game, they aren't as consistent as they are last year. And at this point last year, they were starting to figure it out. They were starting to get hot going into the playoff stretch like they were at the beginning of last year. But this year, it's different. They're not finding that stride. It's one good night, two bad nights. And then two good nights, three bad nights. It's too much inconsistency for me this year. So sure, great offense from the Pacers, but it's a better defense of the Houston Rockets. And though the experience is not on their side, they're at home, they're hungry, they want to make a statement. I'm going to go with chalk here on the left side of the bracket, all of the top seeds move on. On the right side of the bracket, you have 5 Western Conference teams with a mix of some of the better Eastern Conference teams. Now, on this side of the bracket, we'll start with the 215. If there was no Isaiah Hartenstein, I would say, hey, March Madness kind of style. Maybe Sabonis is way too much for Chet to handle, and maybe with the offense that Sabonis has around him, with Zach LaVine, with Malik Monk, with DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, I would maybe see a potential route where Sacramento can go in this one, and they could potentially pull off a big upset. But Oklahoma City, they're second best team in the league record-wise, and they're just complete top to bottom. They have the superstar player. They have a bit of experience based on last year's run, but now they're out. They're hungry. They want to make a statement, and not only do they want to make it farther than last year, but they want to win a title. That's where their eyes are set. They just have too much depth, too much defense. The question with the Thunder, and we'll talk about this later on in the tournament, is the consistent offense around Shea. But again, I'm assuming J-Dub is, again, fully healthy for this game. We're going to have Oklahoma City stroll in this one, win by comfortably, probably at least double-digit points, home against the Kings. The 7-10 matchup, we got to have an upset, right? We have the 7 seed Memphis Grizzlies who are at home in this matchup, hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Memphis Grizzlies, they're kind of coasting right now. Ja, again, just played by Cavaliers. He just had 44, his season high on the year. This team is good, and I was high on this Memphis Grizzlies team coming into the year, but I wanted to see them make a move. I wanted to see them trade for Jimmy. They tried. It just, again, Jimmy didn't want to go there. I want to see them make some kind of a move that would move the needle, to push the envelope, to say, this team can make a deep playoff run. I just don't think that they have that extra piece to move them far into this year's postseason. I think they're going to be a first-round exit, depending on their matchup, of course. But for Minnesota and Memphis, 2 rising stars, literally 2 dunking highlight machines in Ja Morant and Anthony Edwards. I'm going to roll with the upset here in the Minnesota Timberwolves. You got to have an upset here, right? In a March Madness one-game style tournament. For the Minnesota Timberwolves, look, you have one of the greatest young playoff performers in the league. This is a team that went to the Western Conference Finals last year after knocking off a star-studded Suns and a defending champion Nuggets. Again, if Luka Doncic wasn't Luka Doncic, this team probably makes it to the finals just last season. Sure, the roster looks different, but you still got the main guy. I'm going to roll with a hot Timberwolves team as of right now at the recording of this video. So that sets up a 2-10 matchup between 2 of the top 10 players in the league, Anthony Edwards and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Exciting one there. At the bottom, we have the Celtics and the Detroit Pistons. The Celtics are 3-1 in this year's season series, and some of those games, they didn't have Kristaps. One of those games, you didn't have, I believe it was Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. Regardless, you're 3-1. You've dominated the season series, and sure, Cade is averaging just about 25 and 11 in those games, but the Celtics have not been at full health in all of those games, and they're still winning the majority of the series. Historic matchup here, but I think the Celtics are too deep, at full health. They're still the team to beat, in my opinion. Celtics move on. The 6-11 matchup. This was a one that I battled with up until I hit record on today's video. It's the Milwaukee Bucks and the Denver Nuggets. Look, the Milwaukee Bucks, they're hot. Well, I'll say this. They have figured it out. They figured out how to maximize this offense around Dame and Giannis. In this matchup, it would be in Mile High. Probably the best home court advantage in basketball. The ultimate X factor, however, in this game is the supporting cast. We know Giannis, Dame, and Jokic are going to come into this game and dominate. We know Dame always has historic nights against the Nuggets. Let's not forget that historic series he had a couple years back. I think it was the bubble year, if not the year after, when he just dominated that series against the Nuggets. One of the craziest individual performances I've seen in a series pretty much ever. I think that was the year they went to the Western Conference Finals. Regardless, Dame and Giannis, we know they're going to hoop. We know Jokic is going to do absolutely what Jokic does, and that's a minimum of a triple-double. But the question for me is, what does the supporting cast look like around these guys? They met a couple weeks ago. The Nuggets shot 25% from 3 in that game, and the Bucks at home came away with like a 6-point win. So that on paper already says, well, the Nuggets would be home in this one. Role players play better at home. And if the Nuggets don't shoot 25% from 3 again, they should win this game. And that's ultimately was my deciding factor. They I don't know if they have a good chance in today's video to make a deep run because of how inconsistent the role players have been since the title run. But in this matchup here, I don't think the Nuggets role players at home, which they play better at, shoot 25% from three again. Now, I will say, I think it's easier for the Bucks to match up on the defensive end with the Nuggets compared to most teams because you have a guy like Brook Lopez who surprisingly does a good job on Jokic, and also Giannis. So you have the length, you have the strength, guys that can really get under the skin of Nikola Jokic. So if the guys around Jokic, like Michael Porter, like Christian Braun, like Jamal Murray, aren't making their shots, it's going to be a long day for this Denver Nugget offense. But I'm going to have them moving on here to take on the Boston Celtics, the matchup of the last two NBA champions. Now let's go to the Elite Eight here, man. This is going to be exciting. This is going to be fun. The 1-8 matchup. This is a lot of storylines because the main one, LeBron versus his old team, Cleveland, some would say we're only relevant because of Mr. 23. And as a Cavaliers fan, as a Clevelander, if you were to ask a random person on the street, what's the first thing you think of when you hear Cleveland, Ohio? They're probably going to say LeBron James, not even the Cavaliers. Regardless, in this matchup, the Cavaliers are home, so that is an advantage there. This one's weird to me because you have Luka Doncic, and last year on this podcast, where I saw a lot of my success because of you guys, I made a bold claim early in the season last year. I said the Mavericks were not only going to dominate the playoffs, but they were going to go to the NBA Finals. Now, I thought they were potentially going to win it, but the Celtics, of course, were too much. I made that prediction because of the simple fact that one player wears number 77. That is Luka Doncic. He's now with the Lakers. When this team has been together, when they're healthy, they've looked really good, and they've picked up some pretty big-time wins. However, I think the big advantage in this game is going to be too much. I think when you have the Defensive Player of the Year, thanks to Victor Wembanyama, in Evan Mobley, a guy who's taken strides offensively immensely, I think Evan Mobley has a legitimate argument to be the most improved player and the Defensive Player of the Year this year. That's how much he's improved offensively. But he's the Defensive Player of the Year. You still got Jarrett Allen, who's way better than anything the Lakers got in their front court outside of LeBron James. So I think the big advantage is going to give the Cavaliers the advantage, which is why I'm going to pick them here at home to beat the LA Lakers. As much as I love Luka, as much as LeBron is the greatest of all time, in my opinion, I'm going to go with the Cavaliers here. Maybe it's my bias, maybe not, but I've been humble on this Cavaliers team all year, and now I'm going to finally show some confidence in my team. Again, Luka, LeBron, they're going to make the other players on the wings work, right? Darius Garland's going to have to show effort defensively. Donovan Mitchell, Luka Doncic on the other side. These are three guys that are going to have to, they're going to be tired in this game with how these teams like to move. But at the end of the day, man, I'm going to go with the Cavaliers. I think that the big advantage is just far too much. Kind of spoiled it there. I'm going to leave it on the screen. The Knicks, the Rockets. Simply, this one came down to experience. I think that the New York Knicks, they're hungry. They have more depth now with the additions of guys like OG over the last year or so, and Mikal Bridges. I think in a one-game setting, you're at home. You have the experience advantage over Houston. The defense is about the same, and that's where Houston lays their hard hat on, is that side of the ball. I think the Knicks just have that edge with the best, maybe best two players in this game with Cat and Brunson. Experience, defense. I'm going to go with the Knicks there to set up a rematch from 2 years ago in the playoffs with the Cavs and the Knicks. Interesting storylines there. I'm just naturally good at developing the storylines. The 2-10 with two of the youngest rising superstars in the league, and it is the Thunder, the Timberwolves. Who is going to take it home? I'm going to keep it quick and to the point. The Thunder just have way too much depth and defense on the wing. They have so many bodies to throw at Anthony Edwards. Is that going to potentially be a blowout in this game? I don't think so. I think Anthony Edwards probably comes out. He keeps this game close. But at the end of the day, the Thunder at home with the defense and the depth advantage. Now for the 3-6 matchup, the matchup between the last two NBA champions. The Celtics, look, they're just too deep. I think if Denver wants any shot in this game on the road, well, simply, I think they always have a shot because they have the best player in the world on their team, one of the greatest players of all time, let alone in today's league. But outside of that, they need their title run production from their role players. They need Jamal Murray to look like he did on the title run. They need MPJ to step up and be consistent throughout the entirety of the game, but we also need MPJ in the defensive end as well as Aaron Gordon. We need Christian Braun to have, just to continue playing like he's been all year. Christian Braun's had an amazing year. But I just think, man, at full health, Boston's the team to beat. They got too much defense. If Jamal Murray gets going, all right, fine. We're going to throw Drew Holiday at you. If not Drew Holiday, we got Derek White, then Tatum, then Jaylen Brown. If not, we still got guys off the bench that can step in and play some good defense. I just think that Boston has too much. They're still the team to beat. So we're going to get chalk here. The top 4 seeds for a reason. Now, 2 years ago, when the Cavaliers hosted the New York Knicks, the Knicks came out on top because they out-physicaled the Cavaliers. They just bully-balled the Cavaliers in that series, and that was Jalen Brunson's first playoff series as a New York Knick. He shined, and I think he really took a step up as far as his superstardom level, and the Cavaliers just weren't ready for the moment. I don't think that is the same case here because there's a huge head coaching difference, and that's one thing where I understand why the general media is not high on the Cleveland Cavaliers because you've seen what they've done the last couple of years and you're saying, well, what's that much different to this year? It's the head coaching advantage. As a Cavaliers fan, again, a guy that likes to not overrate his team at all. I have never had them as the number 1 team on my power rankings on any video this year because I don't want to overrate this team. I don't want to put too much pressure on this team. But I think that Kenny Atkinson coming in with this Warrior system has obviously paid dividends for this team's success. That's why they're the best team in the league record-wise. That's why we're on pace to win 70 games in this year's regular season. In this game, I think the Cavaliers come into it with home court advantage, with revenge on their mind. I think they have a little bit more continuity as far as their current roster, and they're at home, right? So I mentioned that already. I just think that Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, especially Jarrett Allen, they need to avenge how they looked in the last time these teams met in the playoffs. Do I think it's a blowout? Absolutely not. I think the Knicks do come out and have a pretty good showing, but this year in the regular season, at home or on the road, the Cavaliers have done a pretty good job at defending this New York Knicks offense. I don't think anything changes here. I think the Cavaliers move on to the championship game. Now, at the bottom here, it's the Thunder, it's the Celtics. The Thunder are 1-0 this year against the Boston Celtics. However, no Kristaps Porzingis. Is he going to be there in real life? I don't know. But I will say this. In this world, he's in these rosters, right? Kristaps doesn't have a season-ending injury. That's why he's considered for today's thing. That also means that Jalen Williams is there for the Thunder. So both teams at full health for the most part. At the end of the day, both teams have great defense. They have great depth. They have the superstar level players. They have the big time shot makers. But again, at the end of the day, I like the mentality of one team better. I like the toughness of one team more. And I like the versatility offensively more from one team over the other. I trust the Boston Celtics, and I trust the second best player down more on their side than the Oklahoma City Thunder. So despite being on the road, I'm going to go with the defending champs. To me, they're still the team to beat at full health here in the NBA. And that brings us to our championship round. The Boston Celtics, the Cleveland Cavaliers, like I said, no home court advantage in the championship round. So neutral site here. Imagine a March Madness kind of style here. The offensive edge goes to the Cavaliers, but still both teams are in the top 10. Defense goes to the Celtics. Again, two teams in the top 10, but if you want to even out the playing field here, the Cavaliers have the Defensive Player of the Year. Again, thanks to Victor Wembanyama. The pace, there's a huge difference here, and the arrow is in the wrong spot. The Cavaliers have the 9th fastest pace in the league. The Celtics play at the 27th fastest, so basically bottom 4 in the league. So big difference stylistically. So the big question in this game, who's going to control the pace? Is it going to be the Cavaliers, who like to play a little bit faster this year? Or is it going to be the Celtics, who like to methodically break you down and wear you down throughout the entire game? That's going to be the question in a one-game setting. Both of these teams are the best two teams as far as the three-pointers made and percentages. And in the head-to-head matchups, they are split 2-2. It's gone win-loss, win-loss for both of these respective clubs. Both teams have won and lost a games on their home court. So these teams are as even as can be, in my opinion. At the end of the day, though, do I think that Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, can step up to the plate? Do I think they're good enough to outduel the star-studded offense of this Boston Celtics team? I don't know. I know Kenny Atkinson's a way better playoff coach than a guy like JB Bickerstaff. I'm going to trust him more in that regard to adjust when needed, to make the correct adjustments, right? To come into this game with just an overall better game plan than a guy like JB Bickerstaff would. So the Cavaliers in this game, you have a much improved Evan Mobley. Again, you got a great offense, a great pace to you. You make a lot of threes. You're not that far behind as far as defense because you have the defensive player of the year. I think in this game, I'm gonna go with the team to beat. The team to beat is the Boston Celtics. I'm gonna put my fandom aside. At the end of the day, I'm gonna say in this hypothetical world, Boston still comes out on top because they just got too much depth and too much versatility as far as who can take over on an any day basis. But that's going to do it, man. Episode 262. What if the NBA discarded their current playoff system and just got the best of the best? And who would come out on top? Of course, this one's a little bit different in a March Madness style, but hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, again, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments, where did I go right? Where did I go wrong? And who would you have had coming out on top?